Welcome, everyone, to Mythstorie, a podcast about myths and history. I am one of your hosts, Bryant, with my permanent guest, Cammy. Cammy, welcome back.
Thank you, Bryant.
Happy October.
Happy October to you. It's your birth month.
It is my birth month. I'm getting married in a month. It's packed.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, no, this is... And we're doing 4 episodes this month, which is the big news, really, right?
Yeah. Well, it's spooky season. We've got to...
Right. Yeah, traditionally when we started the show, we had like a couple episodes before October, and then we got to get in and we had some really good ones, and it's kind of continued. We had a lot of fun ones last year, I remember, and the year before. That was, yeah. So this time we're kind of featuring the general theme. We've got some planned guests that we're gonna have, so that'll be fun. And the general theme is like ones that are based on movies, kind of, right? That's kind of the overarching theme.
Sort of, yeah. Things that like horror movie themes.
Right. So, which if you haven't watched them, it's okay. Like today's episode, we're talking about the Poltergeist ghost. I have not seen the films, which there are many based on it. Cammy's familiar with them a little bit more, and that's kind of how it's going to flow. So we'll have a fun discussion.
Finally, something I've seen that Bryant hasn't.
Right. But as always, Cammy will have a story about poltergeists, and then I'll have a small discussion, and we'll kind of have some banter back and forth. But Cammy, why don't you take us away with your story?
Yeah, absolutely. So I used several sources for this. There was a ranker.com article, The Most Famous Poltergeist Hauntings by Dana Price. There's also an unexplainedmysteries.net article and WikiWand, the Rosenheim Poltergeist. It was early fall 1967. While many Bavarians were celebrating Oktoberfest, something sinister was lurking in the offices of attorney Sigmund Adam. The events began with what seemed like prank phone calls. An office line would ring, but then the receiver was picked up and no one was there. Then it progressed. All 4 lines would ring at once, tying up his business dealings. So Adam did what any reasonable man would do, and he enlisted the phone company to do repairs. But they found nothing amiss. Then the ongoing calls started, specifically to a German service called the Talking Clock, which you could call to give you the time. 6 calls were made every minute to this line. None of the staff fessed up to the calls, and this would have been impossible anyway, given the amount of time it took from making a phone call to the clock service to them picking up. But things just got weirder. The next occurrences started with the building lights. Somehow each day the lights would turn in their sockets and become loose so that they did not work and must be screwed back. The fixtures themselves would swing wildly, and the lights would flicker with no known cause. So Adam phoned the electric company to look at the problem. 2 physicists installed meters to check the voltages at the fuses and noticed surges from an unknown energy source. They could not find any cause. Just after this, the copier began to leak ink as if it were bleeding, and furniture began to move on its own. Exasperated, Adam decided to take matters into his own hands. He even bought a generator so that he could control the power source, but that did not help. The weirdness continued. Finally, Adam enlisted the help of a famous paranormal investigator, Hans Bender. This man found that the occurrences only happened when a particular person was in the office, a young woman, only 19 years old, named Anne-Marie Skabel. He found that she hated her job and concluded that the disturbances had been created by her extreme feelings while at work. When she left shortly after, these disturbances seemed to leave with her.
Oh, that's cool. So it's like attached to them.
Yeah.
You know, that's really interesting. The poltergeists in general, I thought there'd be a little bit more on this, but it's very, and there is, but it's all very modern, obviously, because of it's at its core, it's just a ghost, you know, like or spirit that's like dicking around at mildly, but doing more at worst. But while we do have so Wikipedia and Britannica mention sources as far back as like the 1st century AD, which like that source could easily just be something like, I don't know, someone writing about or depicting things happening. So it's tough to like bring it down, but I like some of the early 19th and 20th century kind of stuff because it seems to really kind of pick up like people studying it. So poltergeist is a German word. Poltern means to create a disturbance, and Geist, means ghost. And in the mid 19th century, that term is when it really came to fruition, was used all around. But it essentially means like a rumbling or a noisy ghost. The 17th century is where we see like written accounts of this. Things like I use the term mildly malevolent, so like pinching and hitting and knocking over things. What gave me the idea of talking about this specifically actually is I was reading, it's like a young adult novel, or young teen or teenage novel called it's a series called The Spook's Apprentice.
I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, it's famous. Hold on, I can't remember the author's name off the top of my head. It's a British author by Joseph Delaney. That's what it is. It's a series. There's like 11 or 12 or 13 books. They started in like 08, I want to say, and just finished a few years ago. They're really fun. I read them a while ago, but it's about this boy who it was turned into a terrible movie called Seventh Son, because this boy is the seventh son of a seventh son, and that means that he's
That's
ready.
a thing.
Mm-hmm. And it draws on a lot of British and just Western folklore, like Scandinavian and German folklore. But it's about this boy who's a spook's apprentice in like, it's like 17th or 18th century. Sorry, yeah, 18th century England is when it is, like the 1700s. And it's really cool because it starts off, it's very like gritty and kind of down to earth. Like, so he starts his apprenticeship, and one of the first things they have to take care of is a boggart, which is something it's a thing, and you might remember it from Harry Potter. But in this, they're basically poltergeists. They're that's what they are, and they call them boggarts. And the way that they deal with them is it's really fun, because sometimes they're simple and they just make knocking noises and they just want to like tick you off. Sometimes then they'll call them rippers. They'll actually kill you. They'll try and rip your body apart. You don't ever really see them either, just like the one in Harry Potter. The Harry Potter one takes the form of what you're afraid of. Doesn't quite work like that here, but it's really cool how they do it too, because they the spook, the old wise man, he says that they move through like fault lines in the ground, and
okay.
they'll
Like
kind
ley
of
lines?
right, ley lines, and they just kind of get through places. And so whenever there's an earthquake, there's usually a lot of movement during that earthquake, and then all of a sudden they're getting calls to take care of them. So it's cool. They use salt and iron is like it, and just luck, like it's very
sounds
gritty.
like Supernatural.
Yeah,
like every
yeah,
plot of Supernatural.
right. It's very grounded. There's no magic. Like there's magic in it, but they can't just like conjure a fire. They can't do that. They're just flesh and bones. So that's what gave it to me, the idea. And they talk about a ton of great things in those books. They're quite good. I would recommend them to anybody. It's the Spooks, the Spooks Apprentice series by Joseph Delaney. And yeah, so a lot of the cases, especially the earlier ones, seem to be pretty like chill. And then as we get more modern and into the 1950s and beyond, is when we get some crazy stuff. Like there's the very infamous Amityville horror situation where it was a book that was based off of this real event, where this guy Ronald DeFeo killed all of the members of his family because he thought they were being terrorized by paranormal phenomena in their house.
Have you seen that movie or the remake?
Neither. No. Have you?
I feel like I did see the older one a long time ago, and it just got really wacky. But I feel like there was like a talisman or like a secret room, and I don't know if it was the older one or the newer one, because I think I probably have seen both. I do watch a lot of horror movies,
Sure.
but they all kind of run together at some point.
Yeah, it can be kind of tough.
But yeah, they find like this secret room. I'm pretty sure this is the Amityville, and it's like a talisman or something that this guy has done in this room, or something that's so wicked that it's
causing it
problem.
Yeah, and that's like, it's tough. I'm not a huge horror movie buff, just because like sometimes they're really cheap,
Mhm.
unsubstantive.
I don't like a
It's
lot of gore, so that
sure,
keeps me away from them
sure. Um,
somewhat.
Community, NBC show Community did a really fun parody on like a horror movie where they're like it's their Halloween episode, I think for season 3, and they're like telling like they're sitting around couches telling stories like what would be the best horror story. And Abed, who's the movie and film buff and TV buff, he is telling it, but he's very like procedural, but he's like doing it, and then at the very end he's like, and they escape once they've earned it. So it's about you want them to, a good horror story like earns it. So it's tough to find like really good horror films like Cabin in the Woods. It's like a fun one, of course.
Yeah.
But one I like going to um uh not film, but like people trying to explain it. In the 1950s, this man Guy William Lambert, he proposed reported poltergeist phenomena could be explained by the movement of underground water causing stress on houses. And additionally, seismic activity was another sort of thing. And I really like that because if you can think, especially like in America, where a lot of these things were reported and it kind of boomed.
Mhm.
Think about these old houses, the poor urban planning. I mean, houses that I mean that's like, oh my gosh, yeah, like of course, and those things truly can happen. Your house really can do some wacky, crazy stuff, especially if the foundation is horrible and things like that. And mix in a little like sleeplessness, walking around at midnight to get a glass of water, and you got yourself a poltergeist. So I just thought that was really interesting that he started thinking of that. uh, Psychical, that's the word Wikipedia uses, researcher Frank Podmore and sexist guy, he proposed what he calls the naughty little girl
What?
theory.
Oh.
That's why.
Okay, I get it.
Where, which I get what he's saying, but come on, he's basically saying that the center of these cases is an adolescent or a child,
Like
um, a bored kid throwing
playing
around to scare
pranks.
and fool. Yeah, thanks, guy, for the naughty little girl theory. So yeah, which I mean, of course, I'm sure that happens. People prey on them.
I mean, I used to play a prank on my sister
Yeah,
who may or
yeah.
may not listen to this episode, but when she was
Hey,
little,
Charleston. Yeah.
oh, it's not Charles.
Oh,
It's
okay.
another sister. But so we were all kind of afraid of dolls. Like it just, I don't know if we
As you
all
should
watched
be.
some movie where they were possessed or something,
Yeah.
but we were all kind of a little bit scared of dolls. And when my grandmother died, she had given all of us like dolls like every year when we were kids or whatever. And then we got an influx of them. So this sister had like so many dolls in her room, and she was talking about how scared she was of them. So one day she had taken a nap, and so I snuck into her room and like kind of lined the dolls up around her as if they were like kind of walking towards her.
Oh, yeah.
And she woke up and she did not say a word.
Oh,
but, she,
that's how terrified she
but
was.
she was terrified. Yeah, I found out
Right.
later she was very I was like, "Oh, she knew it was a prank," but no, she was like
It's
very
like,
very scared.
just pretend it didn't happen. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Um, yeah. So it's interesting. This is a very kind of more modern thing. Wikipedia has like a list of noteworthy cases. The oldest one that they list is from the 1650s, called the Glenluce Devil. A Scottish mathematician, engineer, and demonologist. Those are the trifecta right there:
Mhm.
math, engineering, and then demons. He wrote in like an experience in a book on demonology, of like having an incident at a house, and he used it as a being useful to refute atheism. So he was like, well, then how did that happen? Because if there's demons, there must be the antithesis of that. And there's some other like earlier cases too, but there's even some recent stuff. They list something as recent as 2014, the Ammons haunting case, is something that's a little more recent. So it's interesting. But I do, we talked about, like, we did a Will-O-Wisp episode, right? I can't remember what we
Mhm.
called it. Did we call it that? Yeah.
Will of the wisp,
Um,
yeah.
we talked about like bioluminescence, the like decaying in the forest. I think we thought of that as more external, like outside thing. But I like to think of, which would be friggin' weird to see in the 1700s. What else could you think of?
Mhm.
And fairy rings, you see that crap and you're like, what? First there's glowing things in the forest, and then there's a perfect circle. What? So it's totally feasible to see that would go on. But I think it's cool that for 400 or 500 years, they've specifically been kind of using this word poltergeist. It's a specific word. Britannica mentions, and I've heard of these kobolds, Kobold, which
That is
they
an enemy in a lot of video games.
correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, 100%. They are in German. I'm going to read verbatim from Britannica. In German folklore, mischievous household spirit who usually helps with chores and gives other valuable services, but who often hides household and farm tools or kicks over stooping persons. I like that. Like they do stuff, but they also like, where did I put my
They're
pliers?
yeah,
They are
mischievous.
temperamental and become outraged when not fed properly. Sometimes sings to children, and sometimes they're associated more specifically with caves and mines. But Britannica, in their article on poltergeists, talked about that, and I think that kind of makes sense because if there's a spirit that's helping you with like doing stuff in your house, they're both helping you, but they're also kind of messing with you. So I thought that was interesting, and I couldn't really find a deeper connection between the two other than just that discussion. That makes me really think, though. I wonder if Rowling got house elves, the specific, because that's very specific to Harry Potter, the way that form of elf works. I wonder if she was thinking about calling them kobolds, but was like, oh, people don't know that. So, because there's like a picture that they have on Britannica, and it looks very Dobby-ish, just it has
Yeah,
like
they're
wings.
like a red version of that.
Yeah.
Like their skin is red like the devil or something.
Yeah. So, I think that was a cool connection, and I had heard of Kobold. It's probably not worth a whole show because they're just kind of more simple and plain. But I just thought that was really interesting. So, yeah, there's a lot of that's it in a nutshell. There's a lot of modern study on this, which I like. Wikipedia talks about natural phenomena, unverified natural, paranormal. So it has like these multiple kind of parapsychology. Like there's a lot of different angles to go about this because a lot of these like the Amityville. This was clearly someone with a troubled mind. Some of it, your house could physically be doing something that's making it or things in it move, and it might be difficult, especially if you're kind of scared, to explain it other than like it being a ghost. So I thought that was really interesting. Wikipedia has in the sea also mischievous fairies, spiritism, things like that. So it's really it's an interesting subject, and it kind of like a good base for a lot of different stories and movies, obviously, since there's so many and they keep getting remade. So yeah, it was a good topic to launch this off with.
Yeah, I find it extremely interesting how, like, while you have ghosts that usually haunt a place, the poltergeist is almost like fixated on a person
Yeah, yeah,
because, like, you
it
have
created a whole
like,
new ghost
yeah, this
subsection.
lady who's coming in. She hates her job, so things start happening around her.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, my last like thing, there's the game on Steam, Phasmophobia. I
Okay,
think I mentioned it to you before. It's a really well done horror game. I played it about 2 years ago with Anna. We got super hooked onto it, like near the end of the pandemic, and really well
not
done.
phantasmagoria.
No,
Okay,
Phasmophobia, fear of ghosts.
okay.
And it's come a long way. I need to play it. I haven't played it in like a year and a half, and it's had so many updates. It was made by like one dude, and then he finally like too much money, had to get a team, and they've been doing great work. It's in VR too, if you want to really like scare the crap out of yourself. But in it, you're a team of up to 4 people. You can do one person, and your goal is simply to identify the ghost. So you will be given like 3 bonus tasks you could do as well, and then IDing the ghost. And the way you ID a ghost is you have certain tools that you can test. So a thermometer, if it gets below freezing. So the ghost will have 3 qualities, and it has to do with like how it affects things, how it moves, the temperature. What were you gonna say?
There's a 3DS game that sounds very
Oh
similar to
yeah,
this.
I
It's
yeah
like a Japanese game.
I think I remember that. Yeah, this
You
is
you
great.
set traps for the ghost, and then
Mhm.
you have to like ID them once you've trapped them.
Was that Ghost Trick Phantom Detective?
No, that
That was
was
like
no Ghost Trick was the one where he died, and then it was
right,
murdered sole suspect.
but anime. Yeah, Phasmophobia is great. If any computer can run it, it's very simple, really good. It's great. They've done some really cool things with it. One cool thing is, so they have like banshees, poltergeist, oni, jinn. They take from popular folklore, and the poltergeist. Each one has unique traits too. So like onis, like some are aggressive, some are passive. The banshee likes to haunt one person and mess with one person. Sometimes they'll only stay in one room. Sometimes they like to roam. But the poltergeist is known for making lots of noise and just flinging stuff around. So it's really funny. The biggest thing about Phasmophobia too is that it if you have a microphone, you can communicate with a ghost, kind of. And even if you're like just chatting with your friends, that will affect the ghost. Like the game is processing your words in the game. So if I'm just chatting with my buddy, and you can like call the ghost names and stuff, the game will process that, and then it might make the ghost aggressive. If you're like, oh, where's this stupid ghost, and then it'll like, it might freak out and then try and get you. So really fun, really worth checking out if you got a gaming computer or just a decent computer and you want to be spooked. Very, very fun. There's tons of, we talked about Jin, we talked about a
Right.
few things on there like yokai style. So it's really cool. Phasmophobia and Joseph Delaney's Spook's Apprentice. There you go. Get to it. And then play that,
And
read
then
those.
Steven Spielberg Poltergeist.
Paranormal from Poltergeist. Consume all those media, and then we'll see you guys next Wednesday, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thanks, Cammy. We got a fun episode, and then next week planned like this one, and then we should have some nice guests coming in later if it all works out well. So everyone, if you've got more topics for us, let us know. mythstorie@gmail.com or the Facebook or social media. Let us know, and we'll hit up our November. I think that's all I've got, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for listening, and we shall see you next time.
Oh.
Cool. That order did come